Halloween Ends is absolutely insane. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champane, and this is my channel where I get to talk about all my favorite horror movies. And by the title, by the thumbnail, by the fact that I'm posting right at embargo, you probably know that today I am reviewing Halloween Ends. At this point, I have seen it 2 times, and the first time I saw it was a really cool experience. So with Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, I got to see both of those movies early, but with Halloween 2018, I had to go way out of my way to do so. I was able to get tickets to the Salem Horror Fest screening randomly, and I was like, I guess I gotta jump on a plane this afternoon and go see Halloween 2018. And then with Halloween Kills, I got to see it a couple days before it came out. With Halloween Ends though, Universal was kind enough to invite me to one of this movie's premieres. There were actually 2 premieres. There was the red carpet one, and then there was the Beyond Fest one. And I got invited to the Beyond Fest one, and I am so glad, because by going to that screening, I saw the first public showing of Halloween Ends. I got to see the first public showing of a Halloween movie, which if I could go back and tell little kid version of me that happened, I don't even know. I would like freak the hell out. I'm not going to talk about it too much more, but I've worked so hard on this channel over the past few years. It's something I've built up completely by myself. So getting to the finish line of all of these Halloween videos that I've been making with Halloween Ends and getting to be at the premiere at the very first showing, it really felt like a milestone moment for me. And if I look back over the past few years, sure, there are a bunch of milestone moments, but there's nothing really quite as cool as being at that screening last night. So it was awesome. So like I mentioned, and as you've already heard, this movie is going to be a Divisive Halloween sequel. There's no question about that, but I've already seen reactions from people saying it's going to be the most divisive Halloween sequel, and I could not disagree with that more. I think Halloween 3 is definitely more divisive, just because even though now everyone loves it, right? Like, it's a mainstream, well-liked Halloween sequel. People have gotten over the fact that Michael Myers wasn't in it, but if you asked anyone leading up to, like, I don't know, the Scream Factory special edition release of that movie, or even to some extent the characters, the masks from Halloween 3 showing up in Halloween 2018, you would have gotten a very negative response 9 times out of 10. Also, this movie is nowhere near as divisive as Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and that's one where I think the divisiveness comes from the fact that it's just a completely different movie than what was introduced in Halloween 2007. Whereas this one's going to be divisive for 2 reasons. First of all, it introduces a new sort of main character in the 3rd movie in a trilogy, and just for the record, I think it works pretty well. I think they handled it as well as they could. And secondly, there's just not a lot of Michael Myers in this movie, and that's really my biggest criticism, that there's just really not enough Michael Myers in this movie. And even though there's a plot reason to sort of explain it, they could have added more. But I'm definitely getting ahead of myself here. So first of all, I think it's worth talking about whether or not this is a satisfying conclusion to the Halloween 2018 trilogy that David Gordon Green has created, because a lot of these legacy sequel trilogies, where the first legacy sequel comes out, gets a very positive reception from critics and fans, and makes a ton of money, and then generates 2 more movies, those 2nd and 3rd movies don't really work out all that well. I mean, I'm looking directly at the Jurassic World franchise when I'm talking about that. That's exactly what I mean there, where the 2nd and 3rd movie don't really connect, and they don't come together in the end to have a satisfying conclusion. This movie gives us the satisfying conclusion that we want going into it. Whether you're a huge Michael Myers fan or a huge Laurie Strode fan, the ending showdown that's been teased from the beginning with all the marketing and everything that's come out about this movie, it is totally delivered on, and I think it's done almost flawlessly. Like, I literally couldn't change it for the better, other than to say I would like it to be a little bit longer, just because it was handled so well. What I really think is going to determine whether or not you like Halloween Ends is how much you like John Carpenter's movies. Because if you look back on his best work, like Halloween, The Thing, In the Mouth of Madness, those movies have some great horror moments in them. A lot of great kills, a lot of great gore, a lot of practical effects, but it's like peaks and valleys, and the valleys are all character development, story delivery, plot elements focused on atmosphere and getting the soundtrack right and building a tone. And that's what David Gordon Green is doing with this movie. I have to point out that from a script writing standpoint, it has been majorly punched up. They brought in 2 more writers to help out on this movie, and the effect of that is much better dialogue all around, but also just stronger character work from top to bottom. And that could be a little bit jarring, right? Like with Allison, stuff just kind of happened to her or around her in Halloween 2018 and Kills. Her friends were killed, her mom was killed, her boyfriend cheated on her, and we saw her kind of react to this stuff, but we didn't really ever find out who she was as a person. And a lot of her character work is really saved for this movie, and I feel like I really understood who she was in Halloween Ends much more than I did in Halloween Kills in 2018. Laurie Strode also is just handled so well here, because now that she's moved past the whole Michael Myers event and she's trying to find herself again, she feels like a perfect mix of that doomsday prepper Laurie we saw in Halloween 2018 and the happy-go-lucky sort of aloof nerdy girl we saw in Halloween 1978. Like, it's super nice to see her having fun and enjoying herself in the first half of this movie as this local legend in Haddonfield. And another area where this movie is massively improved over Halloween Kills is with the residents of Haddonfield. They feel goofy and sort of out of place and not like actual people in Halloween Kills, but in this movie, they feel like real people who went through something absolutely terrible. There was a character who I was shocked to see survived Halloween Kills, and it's a character who in Halloween Kills is like, whatever, throwaway death, you kind of laugh at it, move on, and don't think about it. But then when you see the aftermath and what they're dealing with after surviving an attack from Michael Myers, it really just gave me that like pit in my chest, full body shock shudder feeling that you get when you see the aftermath of something horrific. Also, I've got to point out that this movie gets the pacing back on track with what we saw in Halloween 2018, but it has a lot more plot elements, so it's almost more respectable in this movie that it's able to move along at the fast clip it does without sacrificing attention to detail or character building and story moments. This movie is an hour and 50 minutes long, but it feels like a lot shorter just because the pacing is handled so well. And I really didn't want to see more of any character except, of course, Michael Myers, which I talked about earlier in this review. We don't get introduced to Michael until about a quarter of the way through the movie, and he's like severely weakened from the state he was in Halloween Kills. And like we've heard before this movie came out, he does get some help, but the big sigh of relief I had is that it's not like a tag team situation. It's just that like someone else is there and kind of setting up kills for him. And the reason for that is he literally gains more energy. I don't want to say heals because you never actually see like wounds healing on him when he kills, but when he kills, it like kind of revives him. And he transforms from this like sort of like hunched over and injured look to this scary, menacing look that we've seen in Halloween 2018 and Kills with every kill that he performs. The problem is there's just not enough of actual Michael Myers kills, and I'm going to leave it at that. I want to talk about it more, but I think it's worth saving for the spoiler review. I will point out though that Christopher Nelson went absolutely nuts on the kills in this one. Like, there's a weapon that's used that I've never seen Michael use, and I was like, there's no way they're going to show what actually happens when this thing is used on someone, and it's out of focus a little bit, I think, because it would have probably gotten an NC-17 rating if you saw it completely in focus, but it gets the job done, and my jaw like dropped when that kill happened. So I was happy to see that there is a kill like that in this movie, but again, there's just not enough of Michael Myers performing the actual killing. So at about the halfway point of this movie, when I realized Michael Myers wasn't going to be in it as much as I would have liked him to be, I wanted to be mad, I wanted to be annoyed and irritated, like that fan part of me wanted to get pissed off, but I just couldn't because the movie is so well made and it's so laser focused on delivering the message that it wants to, and it does it in a really skillful way. We talked about the script writing getting a punch up, we talked about how brutal the kills are. The last thing I really want to touch on is Haddonfield itself, because finally we have the correct version of a Midwest town, and it's all the way down in Georgia. Like, you get these super wide shots of an actual town. Like, there's a McDonald's sign out of focus on this hazy sunset underneath the bridge where Michael Myers is hanging out in the sewer, and that imagery is just sticking with me because it gave me that nostalgic Halloween feeling that I go into these movies like craving ever since I moved out to LA. I don't like the weather here, I don't like the fact that there's no season reasons. I don't like the fact that there's no trees or grass, and this movie has it. It's got the dead leaves, it's got the dead grass, it's got the long stretches of roads where you only have gas stations and McDonald's and other fast food joints, but then it shows these colonial and Victorian era houses that look absolutely beautiful, and they even went the extra mile to decorate them the way that Midwestern houses are, where when people buy Halloween decorations, they keep them forever. They keep them in their basement and they pile on new Halloween decorations every year. So when you're walking through Midwest neighborhoods, like especially back where I'm from in Michigan, you can see like all of the different eras of Halloween decorations on people's lawns, and you see that multiple times in this movie, and I just think it's incredible that they finally did that, and I would have loved to see it in Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. I don't know what the budget was on this movie, but in terms of like shot work and money on the screen, this movie definitely outclasses Halloween 2018 and Kills. Like, it doesn't feel like they had to make any cuts in terms of budget, and I loved it because it doesn't seem like they went crazy overboard like we used to see where horror movies were getting $90 million budgets. I don't think this was anywhere near that. I think they just had great people behind the camera and decorating these sets. It was also nice to see how much respect this movie paid to Halloween 3 and Christine. Halloween 3 is felt all over this movie from the beginning. I mean, if you look at the title cards for this, it uses that block italicized font that's blue from Halloween 3, and I kind of knew that was going to happen because if you compare the fonts of all the logos, like the font in the Halloween 2018 logo is the same font as the font in Halloween 1978, Halloween Kills lines up with Halloween 2, and the logical conclusion would be to have this line up with Halloween 3, and that's exactly what they do. But this movie has a very similar thematic tone as Halloween 3, and they even went harder on the pumpkin intro, which I thought was great. Like, jack-o'-lanterns open up as other jack-o'-lanterns come up from behind, and it doesn't look like CGI. I think the other two intros were all practical, so I'm going to assume this is, and I cannot wait till we get a video of how they made this, because watching those jack-o'-lanterns open up to reveal another one over and over again, it fit the theme of the movie, A, but B, it was just a cool effect that you don't really see in a lot of movies these days. I don't want to go too much into detail about the Christine connection, but all I'm going to say is that if you've been watching my videos leading up to this movie, I was pretty damn pinpoint accurate on a lot of my predictions, and I am a massive Christine fan. It's one of my favorite John Carpenter movies. I feel like the way that they've sort of taken elements of the plot and themes from Christine and applied them to this Halloween mold worked out really well. But if you're the kind of person who doesn't like Christine, I feel like your enjoyment of this movie is going to hinge on that fact. And that kind of, I don't know, it's going to create a lot of conversations. I was going to say it sucks, but I don't really care if other people like a movie that I like. I know I really enjoyed it walking out of the theater, and if other people like it, that's great because I don't like arguing with people, but if other people don't like it, I'll just keep my thoughts to myself and go on enjoying the movie because that's just the kind of person I am. So to wrap up this spoiler-free review, outside of my main criticisms, which are we're introducing a new main character in the third entry in a trilogy, and also there's just not enough Michael Myers, everything else about this movie genuinely worked for me in a way that's going to make it stick in my head to the point where, you know, with a lot of movies that have Halloween themes, I'll watch them in October, right? Like, I make a point to watch Halloween Kills now every October. That's going to be a mainstay going forward. But, you know, I'm not really going to go out of my way to see Halloween Kills throughout the year. Halloween 2018 is in a happy middle ground where sometimes I get that like little spark where I see a frame from it on Twitter or something, and then I'll throw on a scene on YouTube or something like that. This is a movie more in league with something like Evil Dead 2013 or the original Halloween or Trick or Treat even, where I could throw it on at any point and I'll want to pay attention to it and get sucked into its world. Whereas going back to Halloween Kills, that's something I'll throw on while I'm editing because I know at any point I can look up and see some Michael Myers carnage. This is a movie that you have to think about because it's not beating you over the head with its themes, and it's actually extremely well written. So my fingers are crossed here that what I'm thinking is going to pan out actually pans out, that as time goes on and people start watching this movie as its own thing, they start to love it just like they did with Halloween 3. I know people want to pretend the same thing is going to happen with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I just don't see that happening, but this one gets the heart of Halloween correct. So I feel like as time goes on, people are definitely going to end up respecting it as, in my opinion, I can't believe I'm saying this, one of the better Halloween sequels. Like one of the ones that's really going to stick with me because of how much it fires on all cylinders and commits to what it wants to be without making excuses for it. You'll get it more when you see the movie. So yeah, my spoiler review where I can talk way more about this stuff, is coming out tomorrow. And this weekend, for all of you happy Halloween fans who have been asking me on Twitter, on my Discord server, and in the comments, Cortland and I got together last weekend and we shot something pretty cool. So you will see that this weekend. I hope you're really excited for it because I think it came out great. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you today in this spoiler-free review of Halloween Ends. If you want to see more thoughts on the movie, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jimmy Champane, and let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, my name is Jimmy Champane, and I'll see you in the next one. Shape on.